you very much, Grant. Really appreciate that. So yeah, my name is Kane Titchener. I've come down from Te Awamutu today just to speak to you. I've been, just as a bit of an introduction, I've been involved for 11 years. I walked into a presentation much like this 11 years ago and just walked out thinking, yes, I've got to do something about this. The health effects are absolutely unbelievable, so I'm going to get involved. I spoke first in Auckland Council a number of years ago and reduced the levels up there to 0.7 parts per million. I've organised over 40 public presentations throughout New Zealand, and in this year alone we've been speaking all through the country, really getting the issue moving, speaking to lots of councils, community boards and public groups. So thank you very much for inviting me down. I really appreciate it. I'm also on the Te Awamutu and Kiki Community Board, essentially as a part of this fluoridation issue to try and keep it all moving. My focus is on education and science. I'm not sort of on the legal side of things. That's my focus. We're facing mandatory fluoridation in New Zealand, as you will hopefully all be aware. Nelson is one of 14 councils that have been directed to be fluoridated. Currently only 22 of 67 councils fluoridated. It's a bit of a misinformation to say that everyone in the world fluoridates, and in New Zealand it's no different. So only 50% of New Zealand's population has fluoridation at the moment. The Director General has the sole decision-making ability on this issue. New Plymouth has just started fluoridation, July 2023. Cambridge, where I'm from, or near, is estimated to start July of next year. In terms of costs, Christchurch is estimated to be $63 million to fluoridate their 44 bores. Nelson's looking at about $1 million. Now Whangarei just increased their estimated cost 50%. So they've gone from an estimate of $3 million to $4.5 million. So on that basis, and just extrapolating, could be wrong, Christchurch is looking at a $100 million bill just to fluoridate their water supply. $100 million. As I said, the world is not fluoridating. Only 4% of the world is fluoridated. Those are the countries with more than 50% of fluoridation. 98% of Western Europe fluoridates. There's a handful of countries that use salt, and even they have choice to have those salt fluoridation. So in terms of the countries, France, fluoride chemicals are not included in the list. Chemicals for drinking water treatment, and this is due to the ethical as well as medical considerations. Germany, the argument against general permission of fluoridation of drinking water is the problematic nature of compulsory medications. Supreme Court in New Zealand ruled that fluoridation is compulsory medication. The only reason they're putting it in the water supply is to force you to drink it. They're forcing you to drink this. This is a chart of the tooth decay in all of the countries around the world. They're all heading down. They're all heading down, fluoridated or not. It's not making a difference. Dental fluorosis. It's the first outward sign of fluoride poisoning. To link this in with lead's got a blue line on your gum. That's called Burton's line. That's a biomarker that you've been poisoned by too much lead. Fluorosis is a biomarker that you have been poisoned by too much fluoride. There's mild, medium and severe versions of fluorosis. These are the studies that show there's a 50% largely increase in fluorosis in these areas that are fluoridated. And the New Zealand Oral Health Survey found that 40% of children in fluoridated areas have dental fluorosis. The Cochrane Review, 2015, this is the gold standard research. This is the top research in the world. Estimated, again, 40% of people will have dental fluorosis when fluoridated water at 0.7 parts per million. We're going to fluoridate in New Zealand, Nelson, 0.7 to 1 part per million. You can expect to see an increase in dental fluorosis in Nelson as a result of water fluoridation. In the 50% of the country that's going on right now, this is what we're seeing. Of that, at 7 part per million, 0.7 part per million, there's a 12% of those who will have dental fluorosis of cosmetic concern. So that's the severe dental fluorosis which needs treatment. That's not factored into your calculations when you're working out the cost and benefit. There's been 2 tribunals in New Zealand, New Plymouth 2011 and Hamilton 2013. When both sides of the argument were heard, fluoridation stopped. At that time, they admitted that fluoride tablets no longer work. They no longer recommend fluoride tablets. They're basically saying it's a topical benefit as opposed to systematic. And fluoride works on the outside of the teeth. So I'm just going to have some water.
It's filtered water, by the way, he's drinking.
You need reverse osmosis, that's right, yeah. It's cost $800. That's another cost when you get your fluoride in the water. You need a reverse osmosis filter, it costs $800.
I've bought one, installed price $1,500.
Right.
They're going up.
You no longer promote fluoride tablets. Why do they no longer promote fluoride tablets? Because they can't control the dose. Now tell me how you control the dose when fluoride is in the water. Someone drinks a litre, someone drinks 2 litres, someone drinks 4 litres. You can't control the dose. This is Roman Wyman, he's the top fluoridationist spokesperson in the country. He's talking about, do we agree on anything? We are agreeing that this is a topical effect. This largely occurs topical benefit, so the question becomes, if it's a surface effect, why do we do it? How does it work? What he said is, when you drink the fluoridated water, 50% is excreted through your urine, 50% goes across your soft tissues and your bones, right? That's where your skeletal fluorosis comes from, poison of your bones. That's the fluoride that goes into your soft tissue, goes into your bloodstream, goes into your salivary glands, and they're saying, this is their words, not mine, comes out the salivary glands. It's insane, right? He's saying 0.016 parts per million comes out of your salivary glands into your mouth. They're also saying children shouldn't be using 400 parts per million, they should be using 1,000 parts per million. The difference is 65,000 times. This is insane. This is what you're being fed as the public to believe this. That's what this is about. Fluoride chemicals are a waste product from the phosphate fertiliser industry. And what I'm going to tell you is going to sound unbelievable, but just hear me out. What happens is, you've got phosphate rock, which is fluoride rich, 4%. Sorry mate, can you keep your questions to the end? Yes. Sorry, you're just interrupting. What happens is they add sulfuric acid to the rock, which is fluoride rich. 2 toxic gases are given off, hydrogen fluoride and silicon tetrafluoride. These toxic gases are too toxic to go into the environment, so they're captured in what's called wet scrubber chimneys. Chimney with a lid on the top, water droplets are dropped, capture the vapour. The solution at the bottom is called hydrofluorosilicic acid. Excess silica is removed. Excuse me. Excess silica is removed, and that's what's going to go into Nelson's shared public water supply. Now that may sound unbelievable, but in 2016 we put an advertisement on TV3 in between Mrs. Doubtfire, one of the adverts there, and this is what they saw.
Hydrofluorosilicic acid, commonly known as fluoride, is a waste product collected from the chimneys of the fertilizer industry. This fluoride chemical also contains traces of lead, aluminium, mercury, arsenic, and sometimes uranium. It is banned from being released into the air, sea, lakes, and rivers because it is toxic to animals and the environment. Instead, ratepayers' money buys this toxic chemical handled by workers wearing hazmat suits like this. This fluoride is what goes into our drinking water. Find out the facts. Visit fluoridefree.org.nz.
Now, obviously that sounds absolutely crazy and insane. Unbelievable. So we had a couple of complaints about that, as you can imagine. Because that is absolutely insane. And those complaints came in and we replied to them, and you can go to fluoridefree.org.nz, and the complaint was not upheld because that is exactly what's going on. That is exactly what's going on. Now if you get this book here, and you go to the back, you can see this book out here. This is $20. You can get them over there. You can see the actual breakdown of the analysis of what was in it, and you can see the uranium that's in it. Okay? Absolutely insane.
Hydrofluoride.
Now, to confirm this, Taranaki Daily News, 14th of October 2011, this is when New Plymouth ended fluoridation after the tribunal. Council spokesperson Brent Manning said the fluoride could not be returned to the supplier and letting it run out was the cheapest way of disposing of the chemical. Fluoride's a hazardous waste, that's why. Fluoridation to mandate, legislation to fluoridate fluoridation. 2016, National Government introduced legislation to shift decision making to the DHBs. 2017, the New Zealand First got in, and it was basically essentially blocked by one MP, Clayton Mitchell, who understood the issue, met with us and understood it and put a block in there. 2020, Labor wins, election to Governor alone, mandates medical tyranny, as we've seen in the last couple of years, and the bill became the sole decision of the Director General of Health. What does the Director General of Health have to do? They have to look at the effectiveness of the evidence on the effectiveness and whether benefits outweigh the costs. They also need to consult with the Director of Public Health. It's one person. So if he is bribed or coerced or whatever in any way, it's one person that's making this decision. If the council does not do it, there's an immediate fine of $200,000 and a $10,000 fine every day. $3.865 million fine in the first year if Nelson Council does not do this. Now, they're having to tell us that this is so good that they're going to fine us nearly $4 million in the first year. It's such a great thing. We should be wanting to fall over ourselves to have this. Right? Does not make sense at all. So the Director General Directive advises they've considered the Cochrane Review 2015, the New Zealand Report from 2014 by Gluckman and Skegg, and the update on that research in 2021. The Cochrane Review, actually, our review found that water fluoridation is effective at reducing levels of tooth decay among children. However, these results are predominantly based on old studies and may not be applicable today. This is what they're basing it on. There were about 3 studies, by the way. Very little contemporary evidence meeting the review's conclusion criteria has evaluated the effectiveness. An estimated 40%, as I've already discussed, of people will have dental fluorosis as a result of fluoride at 0.7 parts per million. No evidence that cessation of fluoridation led to an increase in dental decay rates. So the government says there's a 40% reduction in tooth decay. Now, if you stop fluoridation, what should you expect to see?
40% drop.
You should see a 40% increase. Not per the top gold standard research. There's no evidence that cessation of fluoridation led to an increase in dental decay rates. No evidence that fluoridation reduced inequalities. No evidence that fluoridation benefited adults. And 97% of the studies they examined were biased. This is what the government's relying on. Director of Public Health. They considered the health outcomes for 5 and 8-year-olds. They used the New Zealand Oral Health Survey for 2009 and the Deprivation Index. They looked at New Zealand school dental stats, percentage of children caries free, and the level of decayed, missing and filled teeth. This is 5-year-olds. Percentage of 5-year-olds, no dental decay. Fluoridated in the red, non-fluoridated in the blue. No statistical difference. No difference. Average number of decayed, missing and filled teeth. Fluoridated in the red, non-fluoridated in the blue. Fluoridated is actually worse. No statistical difference. right? There's no difference in the fluoridated and non-fluoridated. This is what the government's relying on. The 2009 Oral Health Survey, what you need to understand there is it's comparing oral health status of people by fluoridation status, and therefore is not one study. It's important to note that it was not one of the objectives of the 2009 survey to compare the oral health status of people by fluoridation status. Therefore, the survey cannot be taken as a fluoridation study. That's written in the document. But we get told day in, day out, there's a 40% tooth decay reduction as a result of fluoridation based on this study. It's totally untrue. You've been completely lied to. So what is the top evidence saying? The catfish data, this is from Cumbria. Assessment of teeth, the fluoride intervention study for health, 10-year review. Published 2022. Very, very recent. What does it say? Fluoridation's effect on tooth decay in children are very modest and much smaller than previous studies have reported. The 4% difference may not be enough to convince communities to support fluoridation. In the younger cohort, there was only a 4% reduction, as we said there, and there was insufficient evidence for the older children. This is key. This is what it's all about, guys. People from more deprived areas had more decay in both the fluoridated and the non-fluoridated areas. It's around poverty, right? Other ways, this is important, other ways of preventing tooth decay may be better now that use of fluoride toothpaste is so common and levels of tooth decay are much lower than they were 40 years ago. This is one of the ends of fluoridation right here. Doesn't work. It's not solving the problem. So what is the answer? The answer is the Scotland Child Smile program. Now, Fluoride Free New Zealand has been talking about this for about 6 years now. This is what we give to all councillors. The Clean Water Coalition gave it to all of the councillors in Nelson. This is going out the whole country. And what it's got is the stats on what it is. So, healthy eating in schools, proper dental checkups, education of the parents, dental teaching in schools, right? So a bigger suite. What's the impact? Massive. It's half the number of general anaesthetic operations, and it's paid for itself as a result. Why are we not doing the Scotland Child Smile program in New Zealand? Absolutely outrageous. I was in New Plymouth probably 2 months ago now, and David Antonovich, the dentist, came down, and I said to him, to the council, and I said to him, here's the solution, David, why aren't we doing the solution? You know what he said? He just says, I know that won't work in New Zealand. This is what you're up against. You're up against dinosaurs. You're up against these people that are just supporting an orthodoxy because they've always done it for the last 40 years, and that's what they're going to do. They're pig-headed, and they're outdated. We need to change. This is the result. Fluoridation, Child Smile began here. New Zealand, flatlined, pretty much. Scotland reduced fillings to 0.6 fillings. New Zealand 1.1. Average number of dental fillings per child. New Zealand flatlining. Scotland going down. Why are we not doing Child Smile? Right. To get to the 2014 Prime Minister's Chief Science Advisor. This is the study that came out in 2014. And basically, as a bit of background, in 2012 there was a meta-analysis, which was essentially a grouping of studies, of human IQ studies on IQ. And what they found was there was a 26 out of 27 found a lowering of IQ, the average of which was a 7 IQ point drop. Okay, that's less than half a standard deviation. That's half a standard deviation. One standard deviation is 15 IQ points. Now, in February 2014, there was a large public meeting that I organised in Auckland. It was attended by Auckland councillors and a presentation by Professor Paul Connor. On the 10th of April 2014, Professor Gluckman emails Professor Skegg, we've got all the OAAs on this. There is an urgency and a reality. The fluoride issue is hot, and Auckland will be the next place where the issue is played out. Right? They knew this was coming. They took a whole 2.5 months, 2.5 months, to pull together this piece of propaganda, right? Now, this has stopped fluoridation stopping in certain areas around the country. Before this, over the last 25 years, fluoridation in council areas has been reducing from about 30 councils down to about 21. Right now with new promise starting again, back up to 22. This is why. Because everywhere we went, they would say, the Gluckman Skeg Review, that's the top science that they need to look at. The key part of the Gluckman Skeg Review is the Broadbent 2015 study. It's considered very low quality by the US National Toxicology Program, which has just come out, and I'll get to that in a minute. It's cited by pro-fluoridationists as a response to all of the research that I'm going to show you tonight. This is what they use. Virtually no children in the control group, compared 990 children in the fluoridated areas and 99 in the non-fluoridated areas. 139 of those children having fluoride tablets. Which children are going to be having fluoride tablets, do you think? The children in the fluoridated area or the children in the non-fluoridated area? The non-fluoridated area. So there's no control group. That's the point. That's why it was low quality. I'll go to exactly what the NTP say soon. This is critically important to understand the fluoridation issue. In the study, they say, in the original version, further, the claim shift of less than 1 IQ point suggests that this is likely to be a measurement or statistical artifact of no functional significance. Now, we contacted them and said, no, the research I just showed you before is a 7 IQ point drop. It's not a 1 IQ point drop, it's 7. So they corrected it on January 2015. They said, further, the claim shift of less than 1 standard deviation, that's 15 IQ points, suggests that this is likely to be a measurement or statistical artifact of no functional significance. What it should say is, further, the shift of 7 IQ points suggests that this is likely to be a functional significance. So what they've done is they've admitted by saying it's 1 standard deviation, right, 7 IQ points, they've admitted that there's a problem. And the second thing they've done is they've tried to cover it up. It's a cover-up. This is the study they're using to fluoridate Nelson's water. What's a 7 IQ point drop mean? 5 IQ point drop, lead lowered IQ 4.25 IQ points. In the late 70s, early 80s, when lead was lowering children's IQ. It wasn't until 1996 in New Zealand, and the Ministry of Health defended lead right up until 1996, that they decided to take it out of lead paint and leaded petrol. 20 years later, they found out, in 2017, lead was lowering children's IQ 4.25 IQ points. No one bats an eyelid because it's 20 years later. It's already out. Fluoride is lowering children's IQ at least 5 IQ points, and it's halving the number of very bright people by half, and it's increasing by 0.5 the number of intellectually impaired, challenged, and it's shifting everyone down the curve. Now, Auckland's had this as an example since 1966. They've had 3 generations of this going down, and all through the country. December 2015, this is the NTP review. This is where it gets really interesting. Starts heading up, right? Because of all these Chinese studies, the 26 or 27 studies in the Harvard Review in 2012. They're at a meeting and she says, we know nothing. So they're talking about lowering the levels to 0.7 parts per million. Off the back of this meeting, I speak to Auckland Council and get them to lower the levels to 0.7 parts per million. Right? So this is quite important. We know nothing about the differential susceptibility and vulnerability that occurs within the population. Now that's a technical term to say we have no idea what it's doing on an individual level. We have no clue. But we're going to keep doing it anyway. Then it starts rolling out. Bash 2017. This is the first of the American Element Cohort data. 12-year research. This showed a 5 IQ point reduction. In this study, higher pronouncement level fluoride exposure in the general range of exposures reported for other general population samples of pregnant women and non-pregnant adults was associated with lower scores of tests of cognitive function. This is the start of it. This is really important. This should have been the end of fluoridation in New Zealand, 2017, right? Green 2019. But what they do is they say, that's just one study. Forget the other 30. That's just one study, right? This study comes out, Green 2019. This was actually done in Canada. This is at 0.6 parts per million. We fluoridate at 0.7 to 1 part per million in New Zealand, and it can go up to 1.5. In Auckland, I've seen it at 1.2 when I was digging around there. Got them to like 0.7, they're far more accurate now. After accounting for factors associated with fluoride, children's intellectual abilities, a 1 milligram per litre increase in maternal urinary fluoride was associated with a 4.5 IQ point drop in boys. Top researchers in the world are coming out with this. Bruce Lanphier did the seminal work on lead neurotoxicity, 2005. Right? This is the top researchers in the world doing this research.
We'll get to that.
So the editors of this research did a podcast, and I just want you to listen to this, please.
We'll get to that, but tell us the finding.
Right. The overall finding was that, as you would expect, the mothers who lived in fluoridated areas had a higher fluoride concentration in their urine and a higher fluoride concentration intake during pregnancy than mothers who lived in the non-fluoridated areas. And there seemed to be an effect upon your kids' IQ. Now, this effect was only seen in boys, where a 1 milligram per liter increase in the maternal urinary fluoride concentration was associated with a 5-point lower score on the boy's IQ.
Right. An effect size which is sizable.
Which is sizable.
On par with lead.
Right, it is. And